Hey guys, Ross with RV Tips and Travels. Today I want to share with you how I built this slide out drawer in my RV. It's definitely a nice large storage area, but it's up pretty high, so it's a little harder for short people like me to get to. And it's pretty deep, so it's hard to get anything in and out of there pretty easily. A lot of people are cutting a hole behind the TV to get easier access to the back of this storage area, but it's still an inconvenience because you have to move the TV. If you have a Grand Design Imagine Series travel trailer, or any RV for that matter, and you want to learn how to build a slide out shelf in an area like this to make it more usable, stick around. Now I'm going to give you guys the dimensions as we move through the video, but I want to focus more on how to build a slide out shelf that's going to sit in an area that's actually wider than the shelf itself. Your actual measurements may vary. Even if you have a Grand Design Imagine Series travel trailer, your measurements may be different due to slight variations in the production process. Remember, RVs are built by human hands, and the tolerances can be much different than something that's built by a robot. We're going to move through the build process pretty quickly in this video. At the end of the video, we'll slow everything down and we'll take a more detailed look at how everything was pieced together. So the first thing I checked was my usable width. I measured the opening where the drawer would come out, but also noticed my door frame stuck off the wall. And since my drawer will be passing the door, I had to take that into consideration. I wanted to leave at least a 1/4 inch on each side for the slight movement you get from slide out drawers. The total drawer width will be 13 inches, and the slide rails will consume about a 1/4 inch on each side, totaling 13.5 inches overall width. So first I'm going to cut the floor of the drawer. We're going 12 inches wide, and I have about 37 inches of depth in the storage, so I'm going 33 inches to leave some wiggle room in the rear, and we'll be using 1/2 inch wood for the drawer itself. And I'll just use some 60 grit sandpaper on a block to clean off any splintering that you may get from cutting the wood. This is what the bins are going to look like once they're resting in the drawer. Next, I cut the front and back pieces of the drawer. 2.5 inches tall should be more than enough of a lip so everything stays put, and I'm going to use the front piece to overlap the sides and the bottom. I'm going to apply wood glue at all the seams and then staple the pieces together using these 1-inch narrow crown staples. Next, I cut the sides for the drawer. Just like the front and rear, we're going to glue and staple the sides on. Next, I'm going to mount the slide rails on the drawer. I'll put some slide rail links down in the video description, but these I actually had in my garage. I like to keep hardware like this when I come across it, just in case I ever have a use for it. Normally you would mount your slide rails to the sides of the inside where the drawer rests, but in this case we'll need to build a frame to mount our slide rails on because the inside area is much wider than our opening. So, using some 3/4 inch wood that I had already stained for another project that I eventually scrapped, I cut the mounting pieces for the outside of the slide rails. I had them mount these so that they raise the drawer high enough to clear the trim piece. And honestly guys, I just kind of build these types of projects on the fly. I just measure as I go and make adjustments as needed. Not always the best way to build things, but it's what has always worked for me. Next, I cut a floor piece to mount the bottom section of the slide rails on. This piece will connect the slide rails together, give the entire assembly more strength, and allow us to mount the entire drawer inside the RV. Just as we've been doing, we're going to glue and staple this piece to the wood connected to the slide rails. Here's what the assembly will look like retracted. And here's what it will look like extended. Next, you're going to have to remove the slide rails, unfortunately, to stain or paint your wood to match the interior of your RV. Because I used scrap wood that was already stained, I was actually able to leave the slide rails mounted to the bottom of the assembly. Let your finish dry, and then you can reassemble. So now that everything's together, let me show you exactly how this looks and how it was laid out. So here's your bottom floor, your risers on the side, which are 3.5 inches tall. There's enough gap in here so this doesn't hit the trim piece when you pull it out. And your slide rails are obviously mounted on the side here. Entire length is 34 inches long, 13 inches wide. Again, these are about a 1/4 inch on each side, so we got a maximum width of 13.5 inches. So this is the back piece, but the front piece and the back piece both overlap the sides and the bottom. And the sides overlap the bottom, but not the front and back. Be careful when installing the assembly in your camper. Try to hold the base and the drawer together so it doesn't slide down and hit you. Once in, have someone hold the base of the assembly while you open and close the drawer to make sure it isn't hitting anything and is exactly where you want it before mounting it in. With the drawer slid out, I ran 6 wood screws down through the base from the back into the cabinetry below. I'd also advise to check the areas underneath for clearance prior to drilling so the wood screws don't puncture anything important, as well as using the proper length screws to catch enough into your cabinet. Okay, so some of you may be wondering, is this drawer going to stay put as you're driving your camper 65 miles an hour down the road? So the answer is, I'm not willing to find out. So let me show you what I did. So all I did was take a 90-degree piece of angle. I drilled a pilot hole down through here. Then I put a wood screw in. And then when you close your drawer, I just simply drilled a hole right here. That lines up. You guys know what this is, right? Let's put this in, lock it, and your drawer will not move. That's it. Now obviously I'm not a master woodworker, and this drawer is as plain Jane as you can get, but the purpose of this video was to show you guys how to build this drawer to better utilize this space. How fancy or plain you make this drawer is really up to you. If you enjoyed this video, we hope that you consider hitting that like button down below and subscribing to the channel so you never miss a video. That is all for today, and until next time, happy camping everyone. At the end of this drawer is as storage shelf to utilize vary. Even if you have a Grand Design Imagine Series travel trailer,